This resolution allows them into the pool.
Thank you.
One of the things that you would note is that, let's say a school wanted to use another provider, they would have to go through the entire process of acquiring that provider if it was over a certain dollar threshold. So they'd have to go through the bidding process, wait for that to occur, do the selection, and then come before the board for an award of a contract.
Unless it is funded by an sometimes those matches happen through other funding sources, but that's provided that it should come from anything having to do with the school or district budget.
Okay.
Yeah. Madam Chair.
Yes, Ms. Matthias.
So I'm looking at the names, and this isn't to single anything out. I know Brick has been working with Avon Avenue. Do we have the data of what that's been like, since we're, if this is going to be something that we're replicating, how they've been doing there? And the data for all, all the vendors, if that's available.
I mean, the PQS process requires a whole bunch of criterion, which I think we've shared before, we can share it again.
Okay.
But, track record of results is one of them. There's a whole bunch of things in the PQS.
Well, I know Brick we can actually look at ourselves because they have a model that's within the district. So if I can have, that data, or if the board can have that data. I don't know if it was shared before I got on, but I'd appreciate that. And then you mentioned something about the renewed schools, and it just made me, last week you weren't at the meeting, but board member Jeffries had asked about those 4 points, the extended learning time, the technology, the wraparound services, and adult learning. And I know that's separate from this, but I'm just wondering, are we still on target with having those things in those renewed schools?
Excuse me, Ms. Matthias, could we hold that for old?
Sure.
Could you hold that question for old and new? It's a relevant question, but if we could hold that
Sure.
for old and new business, thank you. Any other questions?
Madam Chair?
Yes, Mr. Kenny.
Yes, I only received the information last night, so my package didn't come till yesterday, so I didn't have enough time to actually do any research to find out past practices of the vendors that we're voting for. But I just wanted to get an idea. Is it the amount, it says $700,000, is it weighted for a particular vendor, or is it, what is the max for all 4 vendors to?
I'm sorry.
No, can you give me some clarification?
There is no max or minimum for a vendor. What we have said is that no vendors contracts in the aggregate, meaning all schools. If, let's say, 25 of our schools chose to work with Brick, and that the amount of services they wanted to secure from Brick exceeded $700,000, we would not go past the $700,000 mark. Professional development, services for partnerships are significant part of school budgets, so it could very well add up, but we are not looking for it to exceed that amount, and that amount was derived from looking at what schools did in the previous year. So we use that as a definition of where we would go, but no vendor, none of the vendors listed here are guaranteed a minimum, but they are definitely held to a max. Okay?
Any other questions?
It's all areas. So if Innovative is doing strategic design and they also do professional development, are they still held to that maximum, or is it?
Not a $700,000 maximum. There are other pieces that come into play in terms of public contract law and what you do, and of course it's also dependent on whether you publicly advertise and go through formal bidding process with competitive contracting.
Is there a motion? Then, if there are no other questions?
Motion.
Motion, Ms. Pintor. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Jeffries.
Motion to vote on finance item 41, pre-qualification solicitation for strategic school design, moved by Pinto Marin, second by Mr. Jeffries. Mr. Jeffries.
Yes.
Mr. Kenny.
I abstain.
Okay, Mr. Lewis. Ms. Matthias.
Yes.
Dr. McCreary.
Yes.
Ms. Pinto Marin.
Yes.
Ms. Spate.
Yes.
Ms. Baskerville Richardson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item 43, P33, Website Management Solutions, renewal of contract. Questions?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
This contract right here, because I know each school have their own, do each school individually design their own P?
In terms of this particular contract, the district has its own webpage, and there are links to school pages. This contract is predominantly for the district's website. However, those pages link into the district's main site, and assistance is provided. Each school has a technology coordinator who may work significantly on that kind of work, as well as schools may acquire services from local people. The district would like its image to be consistent, so there are certain standards which are developed by our communications department along with this contract to ensure that the outward-facing image of the district is consistent with the goals, priorities, and initiatives that the superintendent is putting forward.
But don't we, isn't that why we have a communications department and we have a person on staff who handles the graphics of our website?
We have some graphic designers in our communications department, and we actually have someone in our mailroom who has graphic capability. Web design is a very complex and ever-changing, dynamic process. In order to keep your skills current and stuff like that, that may not necessarily be the experience or the depth of capabilities that we have in-house. Some of the most creative people are people who change, jobs frequently in terms of technology. Technology is always changing. So in terms of that, this company works with us to ensure that that happens.
Will we save money by bringing this in-house? If we bring this in-house and have a person in-house handle this system, handle this job, will we save money?
I wouldn't say that we would save money. Let me say this, a technology person such as this would sit on the civil service side of the house, and I'm going to say that civil service is rather antiquated in its job descriptions and job responsibilities. You find that people who are technology proficient tend to go for significant amounts of training, significant amounts of professional development, etc. So it's expensive to maintain a resource like that full-time, whereas if you have a contract, it's more cost-effective, more efficient for use in terms of using those services on an as-needed basis and doesn't carry benefits.
Any other questions? Is there a motion to vote on item 43?
Motion.
Motion? Second. Second, Mr. Jeffries.
This is a motion for finance item number 43, website management, moved by Pinto Marin, second by Jeffries. Mr. Jeffries? Yes. Mr. Kenny?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis? Mr. Lewis? Is it yes? Ms. Mattias?
Yes.
Dr. McCreary?
Yes.
Ms. Pinto Marin?
Yes.
Ms. Spate?
Yes.
Ms. Baskerville Richardson?
Yes.
Motion carries.
And the last item, item 45, P35, Talent and Data Management.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Dr.
actually,
McCreary.
I would love some clarification on this item. So, from what I'm reading, it's a company which helps the district manage the recruitment process and the scheduling of individuals for the district. Am I correct in this assessment?
Can we get clarity on P35?
I'm sorry?
P35, we need clarity on exactly what that is.
Talent and data management is actually not a company. It will be a software or a data platform that will be designed for the district. This platform will allow the district to look at recruitment, look at retention of teachers, the hiring process, all of those things. It does not replace something that exists already. It will supplement our current system that's in place. We have PeopleSoft, which is both our HR, payroll, and financial system. So once you become an employee, you are within our PeopleSoft system. Prior to that, you would be in the talent match data warehouse that this system will create. So it will plug and coordinate with our current systems to allow us to, you want to look at teacher retention. We don't have a way to do that electronically right now. That would be data that would all be mined manually. You want to look at how many people we've hired, all of that kind of stuff. There's a lot of churning that goes into developing those reports. This data warehouse would allow us to have it in one single place and allow it therefore to be efficiently managed and mined for reporting purposes, analysis, and data management. Superintendent Anderson? Anything else?
Yeah, I just want to point out that the new tenure law that was just passed requires a data management system that does the things that this is proposing. Our current systems do portions of it, not all of it, but you have to be able to track things like tenure decisions. You have to be able to track ratings digitally. You have to be able to roll them up into reports. You have to be able to look at the number of applicants you have every year for open positions and how and when they progress through the process. And it actually is quite a bit of data, and our current systems only track the existing staff and have significant limits about the type of data it can capture. So it puts us on the pathway to meeting the legal mandates that every district in the state's going to have to meet in the next 9 to 12 months.
Okay, I just have one then follow-up question. If this software platform is being designed for the district, and I completely understand the importance of it and the integration of it, would it be fair to assume that with the creation of this system at the price tag of the $335,000 this year, that once the system were in place, that the management and upkeep of it would not be this cost moving forward?
That's true. Let me make one correction for you. That $335,000 cost is over a 5-year period for significant additional modules. So the first year cost that you're actually voting on is $195,499 to start.
Okay,
So over 5 years,
right,
our cost is estimated to be $335,499.
got it. Clarity provided.
Okay, you got a question, Mr. Kenny?
Well, is this, well, we have Teach Newark .com, or I think that's our teachers are using to apply for positions in the district. We also have the state that has a regular HR process, and I understand now this is a data platform as well. Can you give me, you said it adds to, but we don't have, and who actually is responsible for managing this system? I know it says Director of Special Projects. Is it under HR? Where does it fall under?
It will fall under the HR umbrella. The users and audience to be served would be, principals would be able to use it when they're looking for candidates, right? Mentors would be able to use it. Staff within HR. So it's going to be information that's accessible and available to multiple users. The systems that you have indicated, Teach Newark, in fact, is a website that allows our potential candidates to apply to, let's say, positions in Newark. It's not a place where there is data collected that is then available for analysis. So Teach Newark feeds our current HR process that allows us to hire select candidates. But if we wanted to know how many candidates we had you asked for a diversity report earlier this afternoon on certain things. How we're going to do that is to actually physically mine the information manually in terms of that. And we have a very massive system. We've done a number of things on both the financial side, the HR payroll side, and HR, the critical piece of their work needs to be automated so that they have that flexibility, that robustness in order to be able to provide the data, much as if we have done with the data dashboards at the school level.
Right, and this is the first time this was brought to my attention, and I think the company is based out of Princeton. What other school districts have they worked with that are similar size as the city of Newark?
I don't have that information, but I can find out for you.
Okay. And the other question is that if we have teachnewark.com and it just seems like it just would be just adding another question on their questionnaire forms. I don't know, I visited the Teach Newark website, but I don't know if the information that we're asking Teacher Support Network just to simply add to what they're already doing with Teach Newark, but it sounds like it's a duplication of services that are already being provided outside of the data system that's being provided to the district.
I would think this would be our front-end system that then, for want of a better explanation, probably replaces Teach Newark and becomes our permanent solution. Teach Newark is something that works and was developed for us to do the critical hiring that we need. As you hire your resources, you need to manage them in terms of, how many do you have? How successful has this solicitation been? How broad can I get job descriptions out to making sure that I get to the people who I need to see this or the audience so that I can hire them. Once I've selected them, we go through a hiring process before an employee becomes part of the organization and exists in our system. So, how do we track that applicant? How do we ensure that we have their resume, their current resume on file? Do we have their cover letters? Have we done the reference check? Have we done these kinds of things? All of the steps that go into hiring and acquiring talent in order to staff our schools.
Okay. I guess the follow-up question would be, if Teach Newark is doing that as of right now, and also the state provides just a basic website where if you can use it to get a job with a district, you would go through the state process. If you have that, what bonus, what is something new that, because this is a pretty large contract. Well, what is new that they're adding that creates greater value to our district in terms of identifying the talent that I think is here, but the talent that we want to recruit from afar?
So think of it as a tool. We have people who do hiring. We have people who look for candidates. You go out, you do it the old way. Young people today do all of their applying online. So you need a robust ability and functionality that affords you the opportunity to be competitive when you are looking for high-quality teachers or transformational leaders as principals. So it is a place where our hiring comes together, where we are able to acquire the talent we need. We're able to manage the acquisition of talent prior to the person becoming an employee. After they become an employee, we have the shell, we have the data. We're able, well, okay, you want to speak to that?
There's also functionality that provides for ongoing, it's not duplicative. So the requirements in the new state law are very clear. They say you have to be able to look. Teach Newark is a portal for application. It's not set up to be a data warehouse. It's set up to be a user-friendly portal. It doesn't actually track from beginning to end anything that has to do with tracking the pipeline from applicant to outcome. Similarly, our HR systems don't track quality. Where our HR systems are live differently than how we track evaluations and where we track tenure decisions and where we track attendance. So you have to create a portal that pulls from all those systems that allows you to run reports efficiently so you can make good decisions and so that we can meet the spirit of the law. It's a portal. it pulls from other sources. So it's added value, but like, I don't know a better way to explain it than it's a data portal, this is a very common challenge for districts. We have pieces of data everywhere, but we can't integrate it into a user-friendly report that allows the assistant superintendents to hold principals accountable for making effective hiring decisions, effective tenure decisions, effective evaluation systems. Right now, they've got to look at this spreadsheet, this system, this back end, that back end. This functionality creates a new portal where you can pull from all those data systems and create reports, which leads to better management, and it also puts us ahead of the game in meeting the state mandates for the new tenure law.
So
And those mandates are pretty explicit.
So as of right now, is it a state requirement that we have to actually, support and vote for this particular contract? If we don't vote, are we out of compliance with anything? Are we going to lose any funding? Are we losing any grant money? Are we losing anything?
In my estimation, we lose two things. One, we lose the ability to more quickly put into the hands of the people who manage the principals and the principals efficient reports that hold them accountable for good talent management, which we think is the biggest strategy for moving schools forward. And the second thing it does, it puts us behind being able to create the portal functionality. It takes time to design something that pulls from all these different systems, and it puts us behind so that we don't actually, we have no chance to create the kinds of reports that we need for good management this year, the longer we wait.
All right. And I guess the last question would be, who is actually going to manage or monitor the information that is coming in?
Any data, go ahead.
And also, how will it be used going forward?
Every piece of, what data you
Well, my question is
monitors
that we have Teach Newark, we have a number of creative ways where we recruit teachers. I know years ago when I was a student, we had a class called a teaching project where Weequahic High School was growing teachers inside the classroom, inside the North Public Schools. So they encouraged us to take classes and have partnerships with other schools so we could become teachers when we got older. That was one. When I got out of college, there was a process where the district was going into HBCU specifically and other schools throughout the country identifying new talent. And so now we're I guess, identifying, another means in where we're looking for talent in the district. But we also have, and I guess it goes into a broader point, we also have a number of EWPs that we have in-house. We have a lot of people that we actually hired for this year, and there are real people that actually have to find work that we contractually have to provide services for. So I'm just trying to figure out, we're adding a new contract, we're adding a new vendor, and I just want to know what that value is, who's going to monitor it, is that going to create any efficiencies going forward? What do we do? Because we still have some contractual obligations that we have to adhere to.
Sorry, I don't know any other better way to explain it. The answer is absolutely. That's the whole reason why we need a portal. So right now, all those data systems live in different places. So as one example, even when we're looking at the EWPS pool, the ability to understand that person's job history, performance, quality, we can't do it. We can't do it because those things, all those systems require individual lookups for each of those pieces of information. Any data portal has to fall under the very specific guidelines, which Charlotte could talk about, around data security, monitored by our legal department, monitored by human resources in the district. And exactly what you're saying is why this is a direly needed action.
I'm sorry, Dr. McCreary and then Mr. Jeffries.
Yeah, I just have one last follow-up question. I guess this can be directed to Ms. Wilson or Superintendent. So when we talk about, getting the best bang for our dollar for the district, similar to what Mr. Lewis engaged in regarding the parking system, I clearly understand the price tag of the system and the efficiency that it would create. Have we been able to, put a cap on that annual upkeep of this system moving forward, or is it, based on a year-to-year inflation projection change?
I don't have that information in front of me, but typically when a vendor bids on a system, we look for the initial implementation costs associated with purchase of software, services, et cetera. There are ongoing maintenance costs, which probably are included in that 5-year number. I just don't have that detailed breakdown. But it is the district's practice not to buy any kind of system or any kind of services. They're going to develop something for us. So in terms of that, there would be an ongoing annual maintenance or technical support requirement, as well as dealing with upgrades or changes or modifications. And that's probably outlined in the contract, which I have to look for. But in terms of that, yeah.
Yes, Mr. Jeffries.
I know we had in the past some issues with the integration of our many data systems. And so I just have a question in that regard, because we have so many different data systems. And even in my short 2 years on the board, we've had a series of these. I mean, I know we have PeopleSoft. We have the Parthenon system. And I know, obviously, given some of the things that the superintendent talked about and the great work the district is doing around the evaluation pilot, at some point there's going to need to be an integration of student achievement data and the personnel, system as well. Do we still have SASE in place now? Is that?
No, we've replaced SASE with PowerSchool, and PowerSchool is what we're doing in terms of a district-wide initiative, is ensuring that all of these systems talk to each other and communicate with each other, so that, for example, in food services, our application system speaks to PowerSchool on a nightly basis. That's how come the schools have data at the school level in terms of a child's eligibility. Our PeopleSoft system is communicating, and we're making sure that we are on consistent platforms and ensuring that that handshake or conversation occurs between systems.
Okay, great. So that's my question. So all of these systems should be able to integrate and work together.
Our IT.
It is, and then one of the requirements that this RFP will satisfy is that you have to be able to link student achievement outcomes with, teacher data, with hiring data. That's part of the specs of what they're requiring to approve any evaluation system moving forward. Everyone's going to have to figure this out.
Ms. Mathias?
So we weren't able to do this with any of the vendors that we currently had. They weren't able to integrate their systems, like with PowerSchool or PeopleSoft.
I didn't hear you clearly. I missed some of your question. I'm sorry.
The vendors that we currently use to house data, whether, in whichever portion, they weren't able to create this warehouse.
This was a competitive bid process where we looked at several vendors. Different vendors provide different services. I know that we have the HR piece as it associates with an employee within PeopleSoft. The design of this particular piece was very specific and was let to several vendors. I don't have the vendor pool here. I think there were 7 vendors who submitted proposals, and they were brought in for presentations, cost discussion, and development and implementation is a significant piece that you would want to look very detailed at in order to be sure that it's the right vendor that you're selecting.
So my only other note would just be that the wording on the resolution is kind of confusing.
Which part?
The wording on the resolution, because she said it's not $335 annually. That's
Right.
the total life of the contract. So just the wording is confusing.
It's because this contract speaks to a 1-year period. If you look at the second whereas, the term of the contract shall be for a 1-year period from the date of award and shall contain an option to renew the contract for 4 1-year additional periods. So over the 5 years, it is a cost of $335, but the initial cost will be $195.
Ms. Wilson, I think the problem is where it says an estimated annual not to exceed
Yeah.
$335, $449.
Yeah.
So we will so modify.
I have a question. Was this vendor chosen, was this the cheapest price? Did this vendor offer most comprehensive services, or what was the reason that this vendor was chosen? Do you know?
I did not sit on that evaluation committee, but that is my understanding from both our procurement director and the NPS staff who were involved with selection.
I have a, Madam Chair, just
Yes,
have a
Mr.
follow-up
Kenny.
question. Since we don't know, we don't have any information as of right now what the past, in terms of whether this vendor has been working with the district as the same size as Newark Public Schools. Do anyone, is it, I guess, superintendent or anyone have any workings or worked with them in the past to give us some clarification as to what services they might have provided in a previous role? I'm not sure that can provide just some understanding as to what they will be providing going forward. So because we don't have, again, I got my package last night. I didn't do enough research on the company to find out, what history they have in similar districts. And also if we have, in your previous experiences, have worked with them in the past at all.
I don't have any previous experience, but the person who represents the district who will be overseeing this in the implementation stages did indicate that part of their evaluation included not only vendor presentations and cost discussions of implementation strategies, etc. They spoke to other districts. They did not name which districts, but they spoke to current district and state clients. So, I just don't have anything further than that.
Questions? More questions? Is there readiness to vote on this? I'm sorry, Dr. McCreary?
Yeah, just one clarification. Are we voting for the resolution as it is written or as it has been explained by Ms. Wilson?
That line should be modified to read at an estimated cost not to exceed. Okay?
Ms. Wilson, does the actual contract with the vendor specify the initial annual amount?
I don't have it in here. What I do see are, for example, during the first year, there will be a procurement of database licensing, which will allow for development, and there's training as a segment of this. There are additional unlimited licenses which will be bought. There's customization services also in here and they specify in the contract the price amount, so that means the vendor's held to that amount over the course of the 5 years. They cannot exceed that amount unless a request is made specifically and would have to come back before the board for approval. One of the things that the director also indicated that was the positive customer feedback they received, the robust functionality, capabilities, and the customer support model clearly identified TSN as the top solution. Additionally, the cost proposal represents the most cost-effective solution as compared to the other finalists.
Is there a motion?
Motion.
I'm sorry, who's second? Ms. Spade.
Okay, this is a motion for finance item number 45, P35, talent data management, with the correction as outlined by Ms. Wilson, namely the not to exceed should be revised to rather than annual cost. Moved by Pinto Marin, second by Ms. Spate. Roll call, Mr. Jeffries.
Yes.
Mr. Kenny.
No.
Mr. Lewis.
No.
Ms. Matias.
Yes.
Dr. McCreary.
No.
Ms. Pinto Marin.
Yes.
Ms. Spate,
Yes.
Ms. Baskerville Richardson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
We'll now move to legal resolutions. There are two resolutions. First is resolution for approval of outside counsel for 2012-2013 school year.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir, Mr. Lewis.
can you just clarify to the audience, because in our package it's 3 agendas, so can you clarify to the audience that it is 3 on the package, but while the 1 is not being voted on?
I'm sorry?
In the packets that the audience is looking at, it's 3 resolutions.
Okay,
But if you
Okay.
can clarify, that's it.
okay, I will. Let's complete this, and then I will do that. Are there any questions on the resolution to provide outside counsel for labor negotiations?
I'm sorry, Ms. Baskerville, can you repeat that?
Resolution approval of outside counsel for 2012-2013 school year. It's the first item in legal.
Is it possible to take,
We're taking that separately.
oh, okay.
Do we need to vote to take them separately, or?
No, we just take one.
Okay.
Motion for outside counsel.
Any
Motion.
questions? Motion? Is there a second?
Second.
It's Mr. Lewis. Moved by Pinto Marin, second by Mr. Lewis. Motion for outside counsel. Mr. Jeffries. Mr. Kenny.
Yes.
Mr. Lewis.
Yes.
Ms. Matias.
Yes.
Dr. McCreary.
Yes.
Ms. Pinto Marin.
Yes.
Ms. Spate. Ms. Baskerville Richardson.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Okay, item number 2 was a resolution approving renewal school names. That resolution has been removed from the agenda. We'll now vote on number 3, which is policy readoption, communicating with the public. Are there any questions on that?
Motion.
Second.
No, it's not a contract.
Motion.
Second by Mr.
Second.
Lewis. Motion to readopt policy file code 1100. Moved by Ms. Pinto Marin, second by Mr. Lewis. Mr. Jeffries. Mr. Kenny.
Yes.
Mr. Lewis.
Yes.
Ms. Matias.
Yes.
Dr. McCreary.
Yes.
Ms. Pinto Marin.
Yes.
Ms. Spate.
Yes.
Ms. Baskerville Richardson.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
We will now move to the public participation section of our meeting.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We will now proceed to the public participation portion of the meeting. As a reminder to the public, all time limits for speakers will be adhered to. There will be no sharing or granting of speaking time to others. Speakers must be present when their name is called. All speakers are required to give their names and addresses. Examples of unacceptable behavior that will not be permitted include, but are not limited to, naming district employees and engaging in personal attacks, slurs, excessive loudness, calling out, yelling, generally disruptive behavior, attempting to disrupt the meeting, or inciting others to do so. Public participation at board meetings is intended to allow individual members of the public the opportunity to address the board and the administration on issues of public concern, not as a forum for two-way dialogue with board members. The superintendent or designee or board chair may respond to questions either at the end of the session, or responses may be provided at a later time. The superintendent, designee, or advisory chair may interrupt any speaker or terminate any individual's speaking privilege if the speaker's comments are disruptive or obscene. An individual may be cautioned that a personally directed statement may be slanderous or defaming, and the individual may be liable for his or her statements. Attempts to hijack or filibuster the proceedings, repeated interrupting or badgering the chair or district officials, repetitive and truculent speech, or disregard of the rules of form will not be tolerated and may subject the individual or group to removal from the meeting. And if necessary, the meeting may be adjourned.
Thank you. Our first speaker this evening, Vanessa Roper.
Good evening, Advisory Board, Superintendent Anderson.
Good evening.
Still have some major questions, and I know you guys don't answer questions, so I'll just make a statement that I still have problems with this board doing votes on packages that was given to them 24 hours ago. And one of the things I spoke to last week at the business meeting is that if we're going to be a conducive district or we're going to be a progressive district, that this board must serve those who voted for you better than what you're doing. The object of this community is that we need local control, and I said that I'll be talking about it and dealing with it all year long, and dealing with parents and community and clergy, is that we, Minister Roper and others, we have lobbied against superintendents, we have lobbied against principals and vice principals and staff, even custodians. But the bottom line, what this district needs is local control. We cannot have the state still making decisions for us, and if this board can't get it together, we can't move forward. And so, as I stated last week, it's not a Hispanic versus blacks, it's not European Caucasians. A problem is that we're not working together effectively, and those who have been called to do a particular task is not serving their community well. Local control is what we need to be able to deal with our superintendent or whoever it may be. As I said last week, you know, the superintendent, she's there and whatnot, but we had deputies. So when the superintendent wasn't there, we had a deputy that could answer questions. And I'm not saying that Ms. Wilson can't do the job, but the bottom line is that we need people in authority to be answering questions when the superintendent is not here. And I wanted to say this, and I say it very respectfully, I cannot believe that some of the principals who are meeting AYP was not a part of the selection process of the new superintendents. I'm saying that with the utmost respect. Are you trying to tell me that principals have parental involvement and that schools are not in need of improvement, could not meet the expectation of this administration or this district of stating that or believing that they could not become assistant superintendents, and by the time we get these people trained, they may be gone? So I have a problem with this here, and so I just want to know, where are we going? Because every 2 years, I just got rid of the migraine I got from the last assistant superintendents, because they did not know the procedures, protocols, rules, or regulations, and we basically had to train them. And then they were gone. Now we're starting this process over again, so we got rid of a lot of district employees, and we hired assistant superintendents. Now, where are we going? And where are we going with this board when you're being disrespected, with people giving you packages that you should be abstaining from as a board? I'm appealing to you, those on the board, you know what I'm talking about. We would like you to be a part of this process of a new district. We need local control, and it starts today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roper. Next speaker, Rosalind Edgerton.
Good evening. My name is Rosalind Edgerton. My address is 119 Arlington Street in the city of Newark. I'm here to complete my June speech that I did. Superintendent Anderson, good afternoon to you and the board. It was about the closing of Dr. Martin Luther King, which has already happened, but I'm going to start my speech where I left off in June. If I had spoken at earlier meetings, I would have shared with you that April 4th, 2012 was 44 years, 4 weeks, and 2 days since the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King. I participated in the March on Washington, was so inspired, not just by Dr. King's speech that day, but the hope that all of us would be respected as humans with character, as Dr. King mentioned in his speech. Today is 49 years ago today that event happened. Tonight I will add more about past history. On May 17, 1954, the case of Brown versus the Board of Education of Topeka was outlawed. It was about black children walking past schools for whites only because of the color of their skin.
That was 58 years, 3 months, and 11 days ago today. June meeting was held on the 19th. Slaves in Texas learned they were free on June 19, 1865, 2.5 years after the emancipation. They were free. A yearly celebration called Juneteenth is held now in Texas. Superintendent Anderson, it seems that you and others are requiring some students to walk past charter schools based on the color of their, the ability of their academic ability. Superintendent Anderson, I pray after giving thought to my request and others about closing Dr. King, which is now done, and other schools, and the historical connections between the months of April, May, June, and August, the significant it represents to many of us, not just in the city of Newark, but the country, and especially our children. In the future, before closing additional schools, you and your decision makers will provide unlimited supports and resources. Charter schools take very few IEP students, academically low-functioning students, and students with behaviors. With or without IEPs, most are returned to the district so test scores remain acceptable to the states. Parents haven't been properly informed about school budgets. When students transfer to charter schools, the tuition from the state for students goes to those schools. It's still in, if it's still in place when I was there. Non-charter school staffs from regular districts provide services for that. Provide services such as home instructions, transportation, etc., to enhance the learning. To enhance their learning. That's because charter schools is another form of public schools. Superintendent Anderson, one last historical information for you, the board members, and the audience. On September 21st to the 24th, 2012, the Schomburg Library in New York City will commemorate the 150th anniversary of the Emancipation Proclamation with exhibits of pre- and post-civil rights photos of enslaved black men, women, and children from 1850 to 210. At the June meeting, I left 3 books for your review and included my home number. I will pick the books up when you or your staff calls me to pick them up. Have a good evening and a good school year.
Thank you, Ms. Edgerton. Ora Davis.
Yes, Ms. Davis.
Good evening,
Good evening.
Board Chair, Ms.
Good evening.
Anderson, and everyone on the dais. My name is Laura Davis, live 429 South Main Street, 45, 50 years. I come this evening to say thank you for giving us the principle that we asked for such a late date. Still say thank you. The only thing I'm asking today, give our kids in the public schools equal to what you're giving the kids in charter schools. The teachers in public school need the same tools that you're issuing to the people in charter schools and to the teachers. And I understand you have 5 assistant superintendents now in the city. That's a lot of money. You have more assistant superintendents now than you did when you had 82 schools, 82 public schools. And I don't think they're that smart that they can come in and get all of our kids college ready. See, that's a misnomer. All our kids are not going to college. All of our kids are not going to be college ready because when you walk into the school systems and you see our kids, the needs that our kids have, it will make you cry. And it makes me sick to my stomach to see so many people getting such a large salary and our kids are being cut so short in our schools.
It makes me cry. I'm old now. I don't need all of this, but I'm looking to what you're doing with our children. But if these teachers that's coming from all over the world into Newark to teach our children, and they don't have love for these children, they need to take their packages and get out. You can't, I don't need that. You can't love what you haven't done around. We need our teachers back in the classroom. You've got all these highly educated people here now. They should be able to train and help our teachers get where they need to be. You're paying 2 people salaries. You got teachers and principals sitting somewhere in a pool, and you're bringing in new teachers every day, putting them on the payroll. And that's a disgrace to the city of Newark. Our governor, our mayor, our superintendent, and the commissioner in Trenton, sir. All of you all need to think about what you're doing, because it's on the wheel. What you're doing to our children is coming back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Next speaker, Lucius Jones.
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
I wasn't going to speak tonight, but since it was in my neighborhood, what kind of sticks with my mind is, first of all, I'd like to make sure we get 5 minutes on the clock, please. Thank you. What sticks to my mind is all that barbecue this summer. All of that barbecue. And it goes back to a saying that the only way you're going to be able to reach the black family, the black parents, is you got to have barbecue. You see how much a message and how racist that sounds? I wonder how many barbecues Team Academy had this summer, or any other charter school in the state of New Jersey. How many barbecues did they have this summer? And who paid for all this barbecue and ribs and chicken and macaroni and cheese? Because while at the same time we having all this barbecue, we laying off folks. See, my concern goes back to the perception of power. And the perception of power is the illusion that we are sitting at a school board meeting. See, we can continue with this perception of power, but the superintendent, Ms. Anderson, has made it perfectly clear that there is no board in the city of Newark. That this is the New Jersey public schools. And she has the right to veto anything you say, regardless of what you say and when you say it. So why do we sit here and entertain black folks? It is a disgrace to come here and entertain black folks when white folks are sitting in Trenton around the real table sharing the real steak, while we come here and we spend $200,000 and $250,000 to elect people to this board. I'm sure that Brother Shavar spent at least $75,000 to $100,000 in the election. I'm sure that the children's first team spent $100,000 to $125,000 electing people to this board. And then the county spent numerous of hundreds of thousands of dollars to tote those machines inside those buildings and tote them back. But at the same time, Ms. Anderson turns back around and says, veto. Not even say, we're going to negotiate. Let's talk about it. She said, veto. You people really don't matter. I really don't want to sit down with you. I really don't like you. You don't like white people. This is the type of conversation we've been having for an entire year. An entire year, while we sit here and vote for hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, but not $1 was discussed about how many smart boards we're going to put in the 54 schools that we have. Not one discussion on whether or not the kids are going to get a thorough and efficient lunch. Not one discussion on how we're going to improve the equipment. When do we talk about kids, people? We talk about spending $335,000 to track folks. But we can't track what's going on in the classroom. We say teachers are not efficient, they're not effective. Some distinguishing, some not. We can't track that either. So who gets hurt at the end of this process? Our children. While we sit here and we dance around. Maybe next month I'll bring my tap shoes and do the Sammy Davis with y'all. Because I'm telling you, it is a shame that we sit here, board members, and y'all vote. Mr. Lewis say he ain't gonna vote, be quiet, and it goes on and on and on. This is nothing but entertainment. And Ms. Anderson knows that it's entertainment. She knows there is no other superintendent, all the superintendents before you took the consideration of the board in hand. But you come here and you say that I don't have to do that. Is it because you're white that you say you don't have to do that? What is the reason? Why don't you have to take our feelings and the board feelings into consideration? Is it because you got backed up by the governor or backed up by Chris Christie? What gives you the reason to disrespect this community? There has to be a reason. And what's the gain? The Bard Foundation said they're going to expand. They're going to expand the chaos in urban communities. So is your collection for data an opportunity to further expand this chaos in our community? And what are you trying to force us to do? Are you forcing the hand of the community to be violent? Are you forcing the hand of the community to be disruptive? We need to see more of your cooperation than your disappointments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Next speaker, Angela Johnson.
She's not speaking.
Good evening, Madam Chairperson and Superintendent. It's been a long day and a long evening, and I almost don't want to give my statement because I hear so many passionate things taking place. And mine is geared towards the central office. And I have worked more than 25 years in various departments for NPS. And yes, we are going through some changes in the district that are beneficial to our students. But I have never encountered the level of slanderous and calumniatory behavior by others in this district. It is one thing to be apprehensive of losing your job or your position under this current administration, but one should not do so by causing others harm in the process. When we speak about one another, it should not be in a calumnious way, especially if you don't know them personally. Workplace defamation is the worst kind of behavior that causes others to have a biased opinion of you that can result in serious damage to one's reputation and character, particularly in a way that jeopardizes your career and livelihood. We ought to find out for ourselves about an individual in question and not listen to scuttlebutt, which results in character assassination that comes from a reckless personage. Certain individuals should be encouraging and motivating others, not spewing untruths. As it stands now, this is exactly what's happening. Certain individuals are not speaking well of coworkers. They just want to build themselves up in the process and tear others down. When it comes down to it, we are all here for Newark's children. Can we at least try to work as team leaders with respect for each other? Because ultimately, we are setting a poor example for the workers and students of NPS. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Next speaker, Deborah Smith Gregory.
Good evening. I just
Good evening.
gave a copy of my questions and suggestions for the chairperson and the superintendent.
Thank you.
These were some questions that I had asked at the last business meeting. Is there an overall written organizational plan parents and residents can view and use to facilitate the massive changes to the infrastructure of the Newark Public School District? One that incorporates both the traditional public charter and charter schools. So many changes have occurred. Public information is needed to transition with any effectiveness versus divided chunks of chaos, instability, and confusion that will enable parents and the community at large to understand the new structure, especially as it relates to the new reveal schools. How has the district addressed the major concerns of the many parents who attended board meetings the last 4 months of the 2012 school year? Some 100 to 200 parents were locked out of each meeting and did not get an opportunity to express their views. What happened to the release of ACT scores? How were they disseminated? Were the students, parents, and staff apprised of how to read, analyze the scores? The existing website has information from last school year, and the supporting information is vague. How many administrators, teachers, and staff employed by NPS are still without an assigned position? By what date will all building principals and staff be assigned so that there are no vacancies at the beginning of the new school year? Since the superintendent has a cooperative relationship with the state commissioner, why can't there be more timely and aggressively urgent solutions about the emergency facility issues which plague the district? An example is the numerous buildings with rented scaffolds that amounts to thousands of dollars per month. Use the same fervor that is used for the reform of Newark schools, as facilities do play an important part. What plan is in place to effectively transfer all records for students who attended high schools that are now closed? For example, Dayton Street, Dr. Martin Luther King, Burnett Street Hybrid High School, to the schools they now attend. When will the teachers receive test information, item analysis for these large number of new students? What is the plan for the smooth transition of IEPs for special needs students? Will Power School drive the transfers? And then I have some solutions. Respect the role of the Newark Public Schools Advisory Board, which was elected by the residents of the city. Have their packets in excellence with the most current information. Give them timely information regarding community events involving the district. Give them requested information in a timely manner. Use the same level of urgency for a written district organizational chart that denotes titles, functions, and responsibilities as there is around school closures and consolidations. Where is the activation of the intended plan that provides direction? If tenured teachers are being used as long-term subs to fill gaps, why aren't they being assigned to the vacant positions? What happened to the school audit report cards created by the Parthenon Group for each school? The information was supposed to be used, was supposed to be more friendly to everyone so each school could have a more comprehensive and better lens by which its progress could be gauged. Use the information appropriately. And in regards to what the website, the NPS website, the fee for the website management system was not in your pink papers. So I don't know what the cost is, but my solution, make the NPS website more attractive, informative, and user-friendly with overall uniformity of information. School flyers, highlighted schools, or sample ways to encourage parents to connect with schools via their school website. If you, as the mayor, says that you're creating a portfolio of schools, it becomes extremely important to place the changes in writing that incorporates all of these, the traditional public schools, charter schools, for the uniformity of information.
Thank you, Ms. Gregory. We will look at the written copy. Thank you.
If you have any additional questions about how I wrote it, I can be contacted.
Thank you. Sharon Smith.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Sharon Smith. I live at 634 Clinton Avenue, Newark, New Jersey. I'm here to represent as a New Jersey coordinator for the campaign against school sabotage and school abandonment. Along with 15 other states, we have begun to organize across the country in response to the devastation of school closures in our community. While 53% of Newark public school population is African American, 70% of those affected by school closings in just 3 years have been African American. Take, for instance, Newark Public School CUSAC scores, as stated by the Executive Director of ELC. The process, timing, and results of Mr. Cerf's actions called into a serious question the credibility of and the public confidence in the state's monitoring of local school districts under the CUSAC framework established by the legislator. 3, the failure model of top-down, corporate-driven school interventions, meaning closing, phase out, co-locations, turnarounds, renew, we can add that to that, expansions of charter, contract school, teacher bashing, union busting in the guise of education reform is sweeping across America and destabilizing the education of Black and brown students. Despite the fact that there has been 20 years worth of data and evidence that proves that this approach has failed, and school districts across the country are pushing these strategies as school reform. Another example here at home is hybrid high school. Students were transferred in the middle of the school year. The district has been asked a response to what is the impact of those students, especially students with IEP, and where did the students go? Why was there so many suspensions at hybrid high? To this date, that question was asked in June. I have not heard from a board member or the superintendent. This is to the board. Don't be fooled and let folks tell you that we are afraid of change. It's not about change and it's not about charter. It's about the crumbs that we're receiving. This is about policy and dismantling public education. Think about your vote. Our vote. The vote that you voted for that was vetoed by the superintendent. Not because the superintendent did not agree with you, but when you called your emergency meeting, the papers were already signed for the instructions of this school. We must begin to organize ourselves. This is not about class. Education is a human right, even if your child is not selected in a lottery. We have alternatives. We have been meeting with the United States DOE for 2 months. It is our moment to say no more. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Next speaker, Annette Alston.
Alston, Newark Public School teacher, EWP, who happens to be president of the Newark Teachers Association, residing at 20 Colleen Street, Newark, New Jersey. To be perfectly honest with you, I'm not totally sure why I'm here. I could waste time giving you information you already know. 9 schools were closed and the community is still not clear on how this is better for our community. People are not clear on why or how it is acceptable for children from a large homeless population at what was once Burnett Street School are expected to make it to Newton Street School or even Sussex. Many would be getting there from the Y and expected to come up with bus ticket money. Will charter schools with 15 students or less be deemed underutilized? Will NPS have any say over whether they are underutilized or not? Perhaps you can explain to us how it is better that the state be allowed to sit on $17 million, part of a $32 million that was allocated from the National Education Foundation. Allocated money has so far all gone to charter schools, none for our district schools. How is it better not to make haste and petition the state for some of those funds for our district schools? I have no problem with the community build-ups. I think that's a good idea. No problem with barbecue here. However, I think you need to go a little deeper than that. Somebody please explain to me how it is wiser to turn our school property over to private interests for bargain basement prices with no real promise of a return on any level. Native Americans know about bad deals. They got trinkets and disease-ridden blankets for their land and fur. What did we get for the property that was sold right from under us? I really look forward to hearing how all of this is going to work out better for our children and community in the end. I look forward to seeing some positive fruits from this for all of our children and not just a select few. Hoping that the recent QSAC report is not an indication of the trend we are moving in. You know, the report that conflicts with the report from last year. Big differences in the point level. We've got to see more.
Thank you, Ms. Austin. I just want to be sure, Ms. Bostic, I know, where are you? You said you didn't want to speak, are you sure? Okay, sorry for calling you out like that, I just wanted to be sure. Next speaker is Lyndon Brown.
Good evening. Lyndon Brown, Essex County PTA, 220 South 6th Street, Newark.
Good
I
evening.
am here to share my thoughts and concerns about the renewed school process. I thought it was very flawed. I thought it was very rushed. And I am very disappointed in the attendance and the community engagement that was reported at these meetings, not just tonight, but at the business meeting. It was reported that community engagement was outstanding, and it really was quite pitiful. And the fact that you've had principals at schools who did an excellent job as principals, so to be replaced with inexperienced administrators this year, I think is shameful. We had administrators in the district who worked very hard and have been displaced. And I'm really very disappointed that some of them who did not do a stellar job are still in their positions, including some of the vice principals. To think that some of them have been at their schools for a whole year and some of the parents have never met them, or they've never gone into the community to introduce themselves to local merchants and clergy and local and state politicians, and yet foster the fact that they are, willing to embrace community involvement when they have not done that for a whole year. I just think it's a disgrace. I hope to see the first day of school looking better than it did on last school year. We have students outside of our building, some to 9 and 10 o'clock, being checked for uniforms. Uniforms should be checked inside of the building, not outside. Once they get into that homeroom, the homeroom teacher should be able to identify who does not have on a uniform. Children at the door should only be checked for IDs and weapons. You do have 3 high schools or 2 high schools at Camden Middle School. They are high schools just like any others, and all of our high schools should have metal detectors, and there are not any there. I want to see them in place there to ensure the safety of all the children in that building and the staff. Also, I want to wish those parents who've been coming out valiantly fighting for their children's rights to keep up the good fight. I think that the special needs population is very vulnerable, and we need to make sure that their support services and interventions are in place in the fall. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Next speaker, Asamad Harvell. Next speaker, Kyle Rivers. Next speaker, Janice Reedus. Next speaker, Wilhelmina Holder. Good evening.
Madam Chair and to the advisory board. I just want to reiterate some of the things that were said tonight, Madam Chair, and that concerns the impact of the students of all of this. We're looking at 46% of the students at 13th Avenue, special needs students, yet we don't have things in place and school is a week away. Now, we will be meeting there, I think, Thursday evening, but we need answers to the questions we've been asking all summer. And leadership is a big problem. We need people who have experience, who know how to work with our children, and we need tools. And it's not just at 13th Avenue. When I get calls from parents and students, a student just asked me if he can borrow some money to get to orientation tomorrow. See, this is the kind of stuff that someone needs to deal with. And these kids, like she said, at Burnett Avenue and other schools, they have no means. If schools are closed, they don't have bus tickets. They don't have bus tickets, some of them are barely eating. So who came up with this idea without importing the impact of all of this, without the students, the parents' voice, the community voice? How does it impact our children? I'm so disappointed in all this hiring of consultants. This is not how you run a human relations department. We need people who deliver service daily so that people connect with them. We're worrying about systems that need to be aligned with other systems. Every year we're buying systems. I remember the system we bought $2 million under Dr. Janey. Now you're telling me that system is not going to be aligned with the one you now propose this year. And next year someone will be telling me that we need to spend $600,000 for another system. We started by spending $900,000 with Parthenon. I thought they were the ones supposed to be aligning the data. I recall that conversation. But yet we are sitting here voting for things that don't make sense for our children. But what it is a waste of money. I do need the board to do the research. I'll help you. And some of you already know that. I'll help you, and I'll help you to make sure that we make intelligent systems that inform your voting process, because we need to make sure that my grandchildren and other grandchildren and every child here has an opportunity to be college ready. Whether they go to college or not, I agree, they need to be ready. And right now, that is not happening with this so-called reform. I looked at a survey, and I sent to some of you today that came from my buddies up at Brown University, the Annenberg Institute, and they indicated that this school reform mess that we're talking about, because it is top-heavy, it is not parent inclusive. It is not engaging all the stakeholders. It will not be sustainable. They cited by talking about the example of New York City and Bloomberg. Since 2002, the evidence does not bear out that there has been an increase in student achievement that's been sustainable. These are the things that I look at as a parent and a grandma, because in 10 years, you know, I'm going to have 4 children ready to go to college again. But within 4 years, one after the other. And then the 2-year-old, I have a little time with her. But the point is, we're not moving at the point where we need to move, because we're not looking to put things in place. I'm not talking about consultants. I'm not talking about new hires. I'm talking about getting someone in that's community-oriented, not afraid of the children, not afraid to roll their sleeves up, that reflect the community, because I need to see, my grandchildren need to see people that look like them doing the job. okay? And I believe in diversity, but I also believe charity begins at home. And we build people up from where they are. The standardized test that you're trying to line this with doesn't make sense to me because I think you're using it for other reasons, to get rid of teachers, to close schools, but it's not being used to gauge what or how effective children are learning. We need to look at a holistic approach for our children. They're anxiety, anxious, they're suffering from depression, and a whole lot of other evils. And I like to have the board lead those discussions in terms of a community forum, and when we get the evidence, because that's what we need, right? We haven't seen the evidence. The test scores, the number of kids who graduated, who did or did not graduate, what's the average SAT scores? These are all things that we would have had by now under the previous administrators. We need that to happen now.
Thank you, Ms.
Because
Holder.
the community has a right to know what is going on, and I really do need my board members, all of you, to step up to the plate, because whether you have a child whose butt is in that seat starting September 6th, as I do, I need you to pretend you do. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Holder. Last speaker, Mark Knight. That now closes our public participation. The floor is open specifically for old and new business.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Lewis?
Just before, I know next week schools start, if we could just get a list, if we could just get data on how is the vacancies being filled, if our classrooms are 100% filled with teachers, qualified teachers, and also we know today a large number of teacher aides and parent liaisons receive notices that they'll be laid off, and I'm concerned on a few levels. One, I'm concerned for our special education, our children who are supposed to be assigned an aide. We need to make sure that all our children that are supposed to be assigned an aide have an aide. And secondly, our parent liaisons, we know they play a key role on parent engagement, parent involvement. I just need to know if these people are being bumped, how is the process of our parent liaisons, and also because we need to make sure that the community relationship maintains in our school buildings, because we understand our children, education is the first priority, and we need the best teachers in front of our students. We also need to make sure our children have every resource possible in order to have a successful school day. So if we could get that data as far as vacancies and how they're being filled, the hires, and make sure that we're at 100% at the first day of school. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. I think Ms. Matthias was next, and then Mr. Jeffries.
So the question that I had about the Renew School, the status of the 4 improvement strategies that the superintendent had talked about implementing in the Renew Schools. I wanted to make a comment about the NPS website. I agree, it is not user-friendly at all, and information up there tends to be very stale. And then a question, because I do have to go and I apologize. Can the resolutions or the Finance Committee report indicate the budget category that links to those proposed resolutions, just so we can more readily identify priorities that are directly aligned to teaching and learning?
I'm sorry, that was like 3 questions.
It was. And I'm
Okay.
going to leave them for you, but I do have to go, so I just wanted to.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
How about if we answer them to her and she can hear the answer?
You want to answer them now, you're saying?
Well, if they're her questions, maybe we should address them one at a time when she can
Or,
hear the answer.
or we can email the answers. I mean, I don't think they...
I don't think it's a big deal to ask questions and leave. So I'm not going to answer them now. If she
Okay, thank you. Any, Mr. Jeffries?
Just had a question based on one of the comments we heard from one of the members of the public. A claim was made that in our consolidated schools, we're going from class sizes where the kids were in classes of 15 or less to classes of 30 or more. Can we just get the facts about that so that the parents and community have an accurate sense of what's going on in our consolidated campuses?
Sure.
Sure, every Renew budget was built on the combined enrollment numbers and the class size mandates. We can give more specifics, but absolutely. I mean, that's absolutely incorrect.
Madam Superintendent, would you mind just reminding the board and also the Parents Committee what those mandates are at K through 8? Because it's my understanding none of them, I think they're all
They're
significantly
quite
below
low.
30.
Off the top of my head, I can't remember. They're different for early childhood than they are for
K through 3.
pre-K, 21K, 23 for
Three
the
through
other
6.
elementary grades, and then high school,
24.
I'm sorry, 24.
So because all the consolidated were K through 8, so basically the point is we don't have any class sizes over 23, or generally we're at 23 or less.
Right, all the budgets were built based on that.
Okay.
And a lot of them are much lower than that. Our average class size in high school is 10 to 1. Just so you know. I'm sorry? It's not much more, it's like 13.
That's an important.
I didn't realize my microphone.
No, I think that's an
Yeah, it's
important.
off.
I'm sorry. I apologize.
Yeah, both
I
of
thought I
them
was
are
talking to.
No.
Our average class sizes in high school last year were 10 to 1, and in elementary, I think it was a little bit more than that, maybe 13. So because of the declining enrollment and our, unwillingness or inability to kind of confront that, we've become very, very low class sizes without the outcomes that one would expect.
That includes the consolidated.
No, I'm saying this is last year's data. So going into this school year, just like everyone, we're entering into headcount reduction through closing vacancies, through, that was last year, ending last year. These budgets were built using class size caps as state mandates as the baseline.
Right, and the only reason I'm asking these questions because I just think it's very important because when we go out in the community, there's a lot of misinformation out there, and someone here may say the class size are 30 or more, and people and parents begin to believe that. So if we're saying that the facts are the class sizes, including the consolidated campuses, are 23 or less, I think that's very important information that parents and community need to know and disseminate so that we have an accurate sense of what's happening.
Mr. Kenny?
Madam Chair, just want to know if there's a time frame we'll have a report as to how we performed last year regarding graduation rates, the graduations, testing for each particular school, how we performed, ACTs as well, since we implemented that for the first time district-wise. Can we get a report and a presentation? Is it possible for a presentation to be provided so that information can be provided? Last thing is that I think Ms. Davis made an excellent point about not walking past schools based on academic performance or academic ability. It speaks into the heart of what we're trying to do with the district. And I think the schools should have a responsibility to make sure that they present what their plans are for this year, since we have a lot of new principals that are going into the district for the first time, to let the community know in a forum that what those plans are, as well as board members are provided to at least get some information as to what's going on throughout the district as well. And last thing is that I'm excited about this year. I think that this year is going to be some great things happening. Every student walks into the classroom with a 4.0. Let's hope that our administrators and parents can do a great job maintaining that 4.0. As well as we have a pool of people who, because of attrition or because there are no vacancies available, that are looking for opportunities to teach. Let's use their skill sets and use their time and talent to put them in front of a child. They have years of experience that we need to leverage, and for them to not use that time and talent would be a disservice to the district and to the children of the city of Newark. And so I'm not sure what those final plans are, but if we don't have to wait for, I guess, a person to go in sick or family leave, we can actually put those teachers that are waiting for an opportunity to teach, we can use them effectively. That'd be great to have. As well as I'm not sure if the district's planning to do any hiring freeze at this moment, because I think Ms. Davis made a great point with shrinking the district facilities, but yet we're still hiring, in which we're creating our own deficit. So it doesn't make a lot of sense, and I'm not an economist, but I just want to know if there's something that we can do to use the talent of people looking to be placed and looking to teach, we can use them more effectively.
Well, one thing I do want to point out is that not all vacancies and not all folks in the pool match up. For example, there are certain areas that we still have shortages in, we always do. So that's one thing. I would not assume that just because someone is in excess that it matches up to the needs. That's part of the challenge of, managing a dynamic system and doing so in a way that keeps kids at the core. Keeping kids at the core is the basis of every single decision we make. So you're not going to put a chemistry teacher in an elementary classroom or, a high school English teacher in a pre-K classroom. So some of those vacancies just don't match up. That's part of it. The other part of it is we did allow, so it's not one-to-one. While we have people in the pool and we have vacancies, those things, you have to go cert by cert and actually see who's qualified to teach what, and those things don't always match up. The second thing is we are allowing our principals this year through a rigorous selection process to pick the people they think are going to get great results in their school. I'm not going to apologize for that. And we have, in many instances, required, if we had an excess of a lot of people in certain licenses, we have required folks to interview a certain number of candidates to document that process, to document why they are and are not hiring. So it's this notion that we somehow just allowed everyone to go outside without an evidence-driven, careful selection process is incorrect, completely incorrect. So I would submit that our kids deserve the best and that all of these decisions are keeping kids at the core. And at the end of the day, if there are some individuals may be in excess as a result of being in a certain kind of certification that we don't have as big a need for, and others may still be in the pool because 20 people interviewed them and didn't select them. And that's the reality. And those individuals will be utilized to the best of our ability under the contract. And I believe that our kids deserve the best. And that is a standard we'll continue to uphold.
Thank you. Yes, Ms. Pintor?
I just have a comment before we end today. I know at times we all disagree, and sometimes it's okay. Sometimes it's okay to agree to disagree. But at the end of the day, next week, there's an important day that's happening, and that is first day of school. And I think that if we can all just leave here today and think about what's going to happen next week, think about, as much as sometimes, like I said, we disagree, the work that superintendent and all of her staff from, operations to her chief of staff to all her new assistant superintendents and all the new additions. I think at the end of the day, this is the reality as it is right now. And I think that us as board members and even community, what's important is that those smiling faces walk into those buildings next week and that they're proud of their school and they're proud of going to NPS. I think that if we can all just, at least for 1 week or so, help each other out and whatever we can do for those kids, because that's all what we're here to do. That's all I really wanted to say. So I know that, next week, I have, the kids from upstairs from my house and all the little kids next door. They're so excited about next week, and that's really what it's all about. And let's just bring some good energy and positive thoughts for next week when they enter those doors and walk through the security and say good morning. So that's just really all I wanted to say.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
My sentiments exactly, and I'm sure, those of the same board, that this is about the students. And, no matter what we think and what's going on with us, this is their first day of school coming up, and hopefully a wonderful year for all of them. So thank you for that.
Welcome.
Anyone else? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Motion by Pinto-Marin, second by Ms. Jeffries. Motion adjourned. All in favor?
Aye.
Good night. Meeting adjourned.